until all the water has been used, and the chili puree is as smooth as a processor can do it. Chili, and some call it chile, has been around for 9,000 years, and the chilies come in a variety of shapes, sizes, and colors, and heat levels. It's quite possible to interchange the varieties of chilies to vary the flavor of the dish you are preparing. Most Southwestern cooks have their own favorite blends. Then transfer the pureed chili mixture to a strainer set over a bowl and force the puree through the strainer into the bowl. And here on the top we have the residue, quite a bit of fiber here, but I wouldn't suggest eating it. I just toss it in the compost bed. That'll shake up the rabbits. And the end result should be about 1 1/4 cups of puree. If you have a little extra or a little less, that's perfectly all right. And here's the texture. It should be somewhere between ketchup and tomato sauce. Don't get too upset if it isn't just like this. This is a pretty casual folk dish. Then heat the olive oil in a large stock pot over low heat and add your onions and garlic and cook those covered for about 10 minutes. Ooh, don't those look good? They haven't at this point colored, and that's just the way it's supposed to be. Then we're going to add the beef, pork, chili, puree, cumin, and oregano and salt, and cook that for 15 minutes, tossing and stirring often. Look at this meat. The blending of the beef and the pork gives this an absolutely superb flavor. And you notice, no beans, no tomatoes. And now we're going to add the chili. Now, the heat of the chili can be judged by how it rates on what is called the Scoville heat scale. And that was developed 80 years ago by a pharmacist. His name was Wilbur Scoville. And the range runs from 0 to 10. Bell peppers have a rating of 0, jalapenos jump to 5, and Scotch bonnet peppers used in Jamaican jerk recipes, which incidentally I love, set the mouth afire with a super hot rating of 10. Then stir in the broth and bring this mixture to a boil. And then when it's boiling, lower the heat, partially cover the pan, and cook it, stirring occasionally until the meat is very tender and the dish has thickened somewhat, about 2 hours. I think the operative word here would be meat tender, because some people like this really soupy, some people like it really thick. Serve this in shallow bowls accompanied by tortillas. Now, we all know that hot yeast bread adds panache to any meal. This next recipe, called onion herb batter bread, is ideal because it requires no kneading, so it's quick to prepare. Here are the ingredients. 1/4 cup of butter, 1 cup finely chopped onion, 3 1/4 cups flour, 2 packages of dry yeast, 2 tablespoons brown sugar, packed, 1 teaspoon salt, 1/2 teaspoon rubbed sage, 1/2 teaspoon dried basil, 1/4 teaspoon dried rosemary, crumbled, 1/4 teaspoon dried thyme, 1 egg, and 1 1/4 cups warm water. First, melt the butter in a shallow skillet and saute the onion over medium-low heat for about 10 minutes. Don't let it color. Then let it cool and set it aside, because we're going to add that to the bread. And that's one reason it has such a very good flavor. Then, in the mixer bowl, combine 1 1/2 cups of the flour with the yeast and the brown sugar, which gives it a lovely, lovely richness, and the herbs and the salt. And I don't need to tell you that this rosemary gives this quite a punch. And then blend that just quickly so it's combined. Then you add the reserved onions and mix those in as well. And the butter adds some very nice flavor to this, as you might guess. You could use olive oil, I think, and that also would give it a different flavor. Now, blend that, as I mentioned. Then add the egg unbeaten and the water and blend at low speed for 3 minutes. And we're just going to let the mixer do the work. 3 minutes now, mind you. We may cheat a little on that, as we do in television. Now, batter bread is a speeded up yeast bread made without kneading. It's a thick batter that often requires extra yeast in order to stretch the gluten so that the bread rises effectively. It also should have vigorous beating, which can be accomplished with an electric mixer today, or any day. Then, stir in the remaining flour by hand, or you can beat it in, and I really prefer to use that technique. If you do stir it in by hand, beat your heart out, because this step is important. I'm going to stop the mixer here and get all those ingredients down in there the way they ought to be. Now, let this get all mixed, and that'll probably take about another 30 seconds, or that's good. A very intense 30 seconds, if I might say so. Get this up. And then we're going to transfer the dough to a greased 2-quart round casserole. Or you could also put this in a 9 by 13 glass dish. That makes it almost a focaccia style bread. So it's up to you which pan or which bowl you want to use. Now, batter bread's texture won't be as refined as a kneaded bread, but if the batter bread is eaten fresh and hot, you won't notice that too much. Now, there's a little rule of thumb about batter bread, and I'll give it to you because it certainly would work here today. Presumably, it's supposed to be thick enough that if you stuck a spoon in it, it would stand upright. But I would also tell you, even though it might not as be refined in texture as a kneaded bread, the time saved that would have been spent kneading would have been a good trade-off. Cover this loosely with plastic wrap and let it rise in a warm place until doubled in bulk, about 45 minutes to an hour. And we have one over here, and it just looks delicious. And it isn't even baked yet. Isn't that great? Bake it at 375 degrees for 35 to 40 minutes or until the top is golden brown. Now, you could insert an instant thermometer into the side of the loaf when you think it's done, or in this case, in the middle of the loaf. And if it registers as 200 degrees, you know it is safe indeed to take the bread out of the oven. Tip this out on a rack immediately to cool so it doesn't steam, then slice and serve it warm. I do hope you'll try it soon. Our last recipe is Southwestern Flan, and it's a baked custard coated with caramel on the bottom, a classic Spanish dessert. It's also a popular ending to Mexican and Southwestern meals, and you will find it on nearly every restaurant menu as well as on dinner tables in Southwestern homes. Here are the ingredients. 1 quart, half and half. 2 cups granulated sugar, divided usage. 1/4 cup water. Pinch cream of tartar. 8 eggs, 1/3 cup Kahlua liqueur, 1 tablespoon vanilla, 1 teaspoon cinnamon, and a speck of salt. The first step is to scald the half and half in a deep saucepan until bubbles form around the edges, and set that aside. The next part is lots of fun. We're going to make the caramel. And you place 1 cup of sugar and the water and the cream of tartar in a heavy skillet, and you cook this over medium heat for 15 to 25 minutes. Now, it's important, do not stir this during the cooking period. The cooking is going to do the stirring for you. And watch it closely. Don't go outside and water your flowers or talk on the phone to your girlfriend. When it's done, it turns a rich golden brown, like tea. Now, see, this has been cooking for about 3 minutes, and it isn't beginning to turn color yet, but the sugar has dissolved. Look at it now. It has been cooking for 7 minutes, and see how it's coloring? It's almost ready to go. Stand by. This is ready to go, and you see how quickly it went, and why it's so very, very necessary that you stand with it all of the time and tend it. Also, at this particular point, this is when you would begin making spun sugar. We should do that on a show sometime. Now, I am pouring this into a bowl today just to demonstrate to you the different sizes of pans you can use. The next step for this, though, is to place the dish in the refrigerator to harden the caramel. But for my own personal self, I like to use a large foil pan, 12 inches by 16 inches by 3. And I do this because it particularly is attractive, unmolded on a silver tray that I have that I use for buffets. This is what the this is what the sugar looks like when it's all done. See, it's very hard, just like hard candy. That's what it is. Not to worry, it softens up later. Then in a large mixer bowl, beat the eggs until they're just blended, not bubbly or frothy, because you don't want air in this mixture. And then add the scalded half and half, again, not overbeating, and the remaining sugar, because remember this was divided usage, and the Kahlua, and in this case it's 1/3 cup of Kahlua, and the vanilla, and the cinnamon. It has lovely, lovely taste, and a speck of salt. While this is mixing, when we talk to you a bit about Kahlua, this is a Mexican liqueur, and it's based on coffee. And you can buy it very reasonably in the stores in Mexico, and when you're there, that's generally one of the things you bring home. But of course, you could also get it in the United States. This is going to need another quick whip here. For a quick dessert, you can pour Kahlua over vanilla ice cream. It's just delicious. And then maybe just, add a cookie, and you've really got something kind of special. Now we're going to pour the custard into the loaf pan over this hardened sugar.